Hey, everybody. It's August once again. Seems like it comes around, about this time of year every year. The highlighted cause for this month is International Overdose Awareness Day, which is happening it's happening, of course. It's August 31st every year. If you go to overdoseday.com, you can learn more about this. It's an extension of the Pennington Institute, which is a nonprofit in Australia working towards legislation, education, and clinical interventions for addiction. And they sponsor this International World Overdose Awareness Day every single year. And as is the little tradition here around the Broken Brain, we're going to be doing a live stream, about a 4 or 5 hour live stream on Monday, August 31st. You can go to dwighthurst.com/live to learn more about that and find the links to watch. You will also find a big old button there that says click to join. If you choose to join instead of just watch the live stream, you can actually come on. You're welcome to come on live call-in style and to talk for anywhere between 1 second and the whole time. Basically, you're welcome to come on and share anything you'd like to share. If you have things to say about addiction or overdose awareness or recovery, that's fine. But also, our greater theme for this year is health maintenance and the important part that being healthy plays in replacing and shaping our lives in ways that we would like them to be, which also reduces risks for overdose and can also even reduce risks for overdose potentially in our whole social circle if we are able to focus on that. So if you have anything to say about being healthy, about being, having a mental health or addiction recovery, or just any kind of health awareness, or if you're just a groovy person who wants to share some groovy vibes, then we're going to have groovy vibes in spades. Dog. Anyway, Izzy Turan's going to join me to co-host, and we're looking forward to sharing that with everybody. So that's Monday, August 31st. Go to dwighthurst.com/live in order to see the times in the different time zones and such, and for links to our YouTube channel and other places where you can watch. And now, to enjoy today's episode.
The Broken Brain.
Recording in progress.
All right, we each got our recording notifications in sync. We didn't even try to do that, but we did it anyway. Just for you, dear listener. Welcome back to The Broken Brain. It's Dwight, your host, here with you again to look at the intersections of psychology and culture. And this is going to be I'm calling it right now, Snoop. This is going to be a good one. I'm joined today by Michelle Snoop Dillard, who is an entrepreneur, a producer, an author, and really lots and lots more that we're going to get into. As an expert with culture and nightlife and branding, business growth, grief, just overcoming all kinds of different things. Snoop has a lot going on. Just had a recent book come out, Grieve, Grow, and Go, which is the second in a 2-book series. Your first book was Who is Snoop? And the first book in this series, anyway. But who knows? I don't know. I don't have a list. Maybe there's others we'll get into too. And also, your TV show, reality dating series Snooping for Love, is now streaming on Amazon Prime and on Tubi. Big fan of Tubi, people. It's an undiscovered country of all sorts of things you don't know they have on there, and this is one of them. Talking about expertise in helping people. And one of my favorite things on your whole bio is that you spend a lot of time helping underrepresented entrepreneurs to grow and scale their business as well. So you're doing a lot of shit that's really interesting for this program's purposes, and I'm really excited to talk to you. So, Snoop, welcome today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Dwight. I appreciate it.
Well, let me have you introduce yourself a little bit and tell everybody a little bit how you got into the stuff that you're doing and what your projects and work are.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Michelle Dillard, better known as Snoop, from out here in the Atlanta area, I guess by way of Nashville and Detroit. Graduated from Vanderbilt University when I was 20, and I've been involved in so many different entrepreneurial projects ever since then. I started off as a financial advisor, eventually moved on to investing in real estate. And then I got into the hospitality industry where I've spent probably the better part of the past 15 years in that industry. And then that being in hospitality, if any of the listeners are in hospitality, it's like hard knock life, grinding, very, very time consuming. And so
You kind
to
of
kind of
came up business wise in that industry.
yes,
Oof.
I did. But wanted to kind of change the gears a little bit and invest in something that would be a little bit more passive. And so that's what led me to the salon suites industry. And that's where I currently do a lot of coaching and helping people get into the salon suites industry as well, helping them get funding, things of that nature. I also have a life insurance company, which that was inspired by the passing of my late daughter, Katira Renee Dillard. She passed away about 3 years ago, and I didn't have life insurance on her. I was, of course, able to afford to bury her, but it just kind of made me think about others that may not have been in my shoes. And it's like, when you lose somebody, it's already devastating enough, but then to have to think about how you're going to take care of, burying them and things of that nature. So that led me to start and open up my life insurance company. It also led me to write my book, which is a two-part book. It's an autobiography, as you mentioned. The first part is just about all the trials and tribulations that I went through to become successful. And so that part is called Who is Snoop? And then the second part is called Grieve, Grow, and Go. I'm very vocal about how when my daughter passed, I had a period where I did not know how I would go on, a period of, contemplating suicide. And so I know a lot of people have had moments where they feel stuck when they lose someone, especially whether it's unexpected or whether it's anticipated grief. And so I wanted to be able to share my journey and some of the steps that I took that led me out of that black hole. So got that. Also went through a divorce while I was grieving my daughter.
Oh,
And so that led me to the TV show that I started and created and executive produced, Snooping for Love, which is on, as you mentioned, Tubi, Amazon Prime, and Apple TV. So, yeah, that's a bit of my story in 90 seconds?
it's one of the things that I have a lot of innovators and entrepreneurs, obviously, that I interview. And one of the things that's always very impressive to me is the mentality and the personality to say, here's a need. Maybe there's a need in my life, a need I see other places. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to build a thing to make it happen. I'm going to, I don't see this resource out there. I'm going to write it. I don't see this need being met. I'm going to start an LLC. I'm going to, that mentality of saying, and then I would say, definitely most of us don't go like, here's a thing I'm going through. I'm going to make a TV show based, kind of around this part too. And there's, that's just such a interesting response to me to look and say, let me build resources when I don't see them. And then, creating the need that is there and creating a solution. That's the word I'm dancing around here. Putting solutions for things that you see that not only you're going for, but it leads to seeing needs. And so is that always been the way you approach things? Is like, I want to change it up. I'm going to build something.
I cannot say that has been the case. Well, that did start pretty young, but initially, you just kind of get into something just looking to make money and pay the bills, But yeah, that did start off, for me being the case of what I would do is I would come up with various ideas and businesses. I recall first moving to Atlanta, and when I was in Nashville was when I started my hospitality journey, and it was grand opening, grand closing. I was not successful at all, and I thought that I would never get back into the hospitality industry. However, when I moved to when I moved to Atlanta, I saw that the hookah was very, big here. A lot of people were smoking hookah. And I never really got into it, but I realized that there was an opportunity to create a hookah lounge, which is what, led me back into the hospitality industry. And I was extremely successful in it. So I guess I would say that, yes. And I think that that's how a lot of people start when they get into entrepreneurship is finding a need and fulfilling that need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's one of those things that I also find like there's an empowerment there, and I think that's a word that's thrown around a lot. I use this quote a lot for anybody who's listened to the show enough to know Chris Revel, who's a frequent old podcast friend of mine who's come on the show a lot. He always says action is a form of self care, and I think when we talk about self care, it's not just like, oh, I'm just kind of take it easy for a little while, which is one specific form of self-care is like have a good day, have a spa day or something. But the much more frequent form of self-care we can engage in is being like, how can I engage with a thing? How can I find an action that I can take in overwhelming situations? And well, and that's what I find interesting when you're looking at then with the book and the things you're really talking a lot about the going through situations that can be out of control situations. I mean, grief being a big example of that, of like I can't control what happened, but how do I find action and things I can do within that for recovery, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which in your case led to that's a really powerful observation that you mentioned, which is looking and saying there's so much going on in the midst of grief, and then just the way the world is and the way it's set up. And you could say, I guess, how much of that is just the way the world is, how much of it is the world we built, to where it's like, oh yeah, wow, going through the most powerful loss and grief and one of the most powerful emotionally draining and devastating experiences of your life, and sign these 53 forms, please. And also, by the way, you got to call this number by next Saturday, or else something's going to not happen that should happen, or that something that shouldn't happen is going to happen. And there's only 25 other to-do lists that you have to now worry about as well, and please do them all today.
Hmm. For sure. For sure.
What do you think when you look at something like that, and this is that sort of giving back perspective that you put, like I like the life insurance business, for example, when you look
Hmm.
and say this would free up. It's one of the things that's very interesting to me is not only is it like, oh, this would free up things. You were able to look at that and say, I don't really. I was you're successful and fortunate enough not to need it yourself, but then to say, how do I apply this back to other people? And it seems like in
Right.
a lot of your work, there's a connection there of what is my thing I'm going to do, and then how do you adapt that for other people? It seems like that's always a part of it for you.
Yes, absolutely. Because even though it wasn't an issue for me, and a lot of times we have to look outside of our inner lens, and outside of just what we're grateful enough to have or not to have to worry about. But be compassionate enough for others and to realize that, like, man, this situation could have been totally even worse, if I wasn't in the situation that I am in. And that's why we have things like life insurance, and so of course, we see it on a day-to-day basis. We see people passing and their family members having to start GoFundMe's, or having to have an event to raise money in order to be able to bury them. So I think a lot of times, and it doesn't matter how many people we lose young. um, and when I say young, I'm not even talking about, teenagers or in their 20s. Losing someone in their 40s, is young, So I think, everybody has to kind of think more so with the mindset that, death is random, and to be prepared, and that even goes into, having trust, having wheels, and things of that nature. It's a lot to think about that we don't want to think about, because we all would love to think that we are, have this great immortality where we're not going to pass. But truth of the matter is we will. And we really don't feel it until it hits our front doorsteps.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at it a lot of times when we measure how we're doing, we look at success of goals, which is a great metric in some very specific ways, obviously. But on the other hand, I also look and say the definition of healthy isn't the same as success. The definition I think of being a healthy person is engagement. Now, success is great, but it's a separate thing. I think evaluating how am I doing? Did my goals work? Did they succeed? I think that also as a separate, equally important thing is to say, am I engaged with these things? Am I doing stuff? And am I trying to find ways other than, because if I'm either ducking or avoiding, or just as is easy to do, just being overwhelmed and not taking any action, then success isn't going to happen, number one. But even when we're not successful in a specific thing, if we're engaged in it, we kind of know where to go, or we at least are paying attention to it. Like you just said, death is a great example of that, because I can't solve the problem of dying, but if I'm engaged with the reality of mortality and the reality of unplanned events having a big effect in our
Mhm.
lives, then then I am more set up to deal with it. Does that make sense? It's like being
Oh,
engaged
yeah, for
as its own
sure.
goal. Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
What as you see when you're working with people, as you're kind of going out there and talking to people who are doing their own thing and are working with, um, in this case, entrepreneurship, but what kinds of things do you find obstacles to people believing in themselves this way, that I
Oh
can
my God.
do
I'm so
things?
happy that you asked that because that's one of the biggest things that I have to help people get over, because a lot of the people that I work with, they are not already entrepreneurs. This may be opening up a salon suite, maybe the first thing that they've done, that's taking them on that path. And so the very first thing, yes, is overcoming self doubt. A lot of people have that fear, I'm pretty sure, when you first started your podcast, or even had the idea, when it was just birth in your head. And I don't know, unless you've done tons of entrepreneurial things. But a lot of us will have that fear, like, oh my God, I've never done this before. Will it be successful? Will I get, 100 listeners? Will I get 1,000 listeners? Will I be on the top 10 podcast list? So um, that is, the thoughts that go through a lot of people's head. So it's fear, because they've never done it before. It's self-doubt. A lot of times I have to help people with the fact, because I help people also get business funding to do this, so you don't necessarily have to have your own money. And so that's generally an objection that a lot of people have is, well, Snoop, I just don't have the money to do this. I don't have it. The thing is, you don't have to have $100,000 to make $100,000. Especially if business funding, and you have good credit. So those are definitely a lot of objections that I have to have people with, and just procrastinating. We are procrastinators by nature. I got this going on, I got that going on. It's just not the right time. The thing is, hey, it's never going to be the right time. The right time was when you first thought about it, and the next best time is now.
Yeah.
The people that I do end up helping, because the fact of the matter is, the salon suite industry, it's a semi-passive industry. So once you actually get one going, it ends up freeing up a lot of your time. So people are able to travel, they're able to spend more time with their family. They're just able to buy their time back, and not have to exchange time for money. And so one of the biggest things that I hear from people that actually go through the process of opening up their salon suite businesses, oh my God, I wish I would have done this sooner. Because a lot of us have more time behind us than we do in front of us. So it's even more important, not to procrastinate, and get on top of things, now.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. There's kind of like a double punch there to our confidence. One is, can I even do this? And then the other is actually putting and realizing like the work that you put in, like as you put it, building up. I think passive income or passive whatever became such a catchphrase for a while, with a lot of like, oh, I don't know. It's like you scroll TikTok or Instagram reels, every third one is a wellness coach and the others are business coaches, and the other, back when everybody became a coach and an influencer of some kind, right? And they talk
Mhm.
about it like, oh, here's a little quick, simple passive income. And it's like, quick and simple. No, there's like a lot of work that's very intimidating to get something set up that is functional, and to say, can I do that work? And then there's even the, can I actually do a thing that works? And you kind of need both. You need like the confidence to try, but
Mhm.
sometimes with the shallower version of coaching, I think, is you're trying to buoy up someone's confidence, but not to necessarily accept the idea that, okay, this is going to kick my ass for a minute in order to make something that's good and useful. And having both of those is hard.
Yeah, and so for me, I never paint a picture that like this is going to be the easiest thing you've ever done in the world. It's not, the construction process, especially if you've never leased, a commercial building, you've never renovated anything. That's the challenging part. But once you get it open and you follow the steps, because I've been doing this for 9 years, I've already made a lot of the mistakes, But yeah, nothing worth having is easy. We've all heard that. And that's one of the sayings that is very true, But once you get through the pain parts and you follow the steps, that's the big thing is that nowadays we do have mentorship programs. When I first got started off and I first did my very first one 9 years ago, there were no programs, there were no coaches. Every third, there was no TikTok. I was going to say every third post.
Right, exactly. No, not the problem wasn't sorting through what kind of coaching to pursue. It was like, what?
None at all. Right, exactly.
Right. Well, and now, and that's a great point. So when you see that, the intimidation of being able to do that, it sounds like looking forward to the payoff of something to say, so there we bounce back where there's the confidence piece again to say I can do it, putting the work in, but then also anticipating and planning on, if I'm planning on succeeding, what do I hope to gain and what can I look forward to? It sounds like is a motivator.
Absolutely, for sure. Keeping your eye on the prize, you know what I mean? I think that helps you get through. And then just, it sounds so cliche, but knowing your why and keeping that at the forefront, every single day as you're going through those hard moments.
What made you branch into some of the creative outlets and things like that? I mean, here you are working on, I don't know many people in my own experience that are like, oh, I'm going to start a TV show, for example. You may meet people who talk about it or who have ideas and stuff, but I think for most of us, it's not even something we have on our, I could do that list sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Simple line. I'm crazy. I'm just crazy. But no, I always wanted to be in TV and film. I never wanted to be in front of the camera. So that was a big difference for me. I'm always wanted to be behind the camera, be it screenwriting, executive producing. I always had a fascination for movies and TV shows, growing up. And I always said that once I got to the point that I didn't have to worry about money as much, I would reach back and kind of try to get into some things that I could be a little bit more passionate about and not worry about the dollar and cents at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big, interesting balance as you're approaching the projects. People always say like, oh, do something that you love or something you believe in, and then the money will follow. I hear that phrase so many times, and it's like, but how do you actually how do you advocate for that and help people balance out? There is a need for appreciation of what finite resources and how to allocate time in a way that isn't just going to be like, oh, I spent time on the 1% of this project that was enjoyable and I thought would pay off, and then I ran out of steam and money. So how do we balance that out and say, yeah, believe in yourself, the money will follow, and then but I do have to actually have money following.
Yeah, I think the best thing is to make sure that you kind of have money already or kind of have some stability and then branch off on a part-time basis into what you're more passionate about. That way everything over here is still taken care of with, definite resources coming in. Even if it's from something that you don't like doing as much, but you don't, everything is already taken care of, your bills. And then some of the extra time you have, that's the time that you can utilize and devote to something that you're more passionate about. And eventually it will kind of weigh itself out. And you can start, the thing that you're more passionate about as you start learning more, the skill set gets better, you start making more money, and then you're able to give more of your time to it because you're able to see more of the financial benefit eventually.
Working a lot in counseling myself, and particularly in the area of addiction, this applies to all kinds of things, but in addiction, they talk about the stages of change. and they
Mhm.
map out, it's like pre-contemplation is what they call it, where you don't know there's a problem yet, right? If someone's in that stage and then they get to where they're contemplating, meaning that I know there's a problem. I haven't done anything
Mhm.
about it yet. I'm not even ready to do anything because the next step is preparation. I'm preparing to do something about it. I'm planning, I'm whatever. And often, and this is where this ties in, I think. Oftentimes, what they caution treatment programs is when someone comes in, so you go from preparation to actually doing action. And then from action, hopefully you go to maintaining sobriety and whatever it is that you do. So as you go through these stages, oftentimes, like someone enters a treatment, they're just barely, maybe they're in the contemplation. They might be really appreciating there's a problem. They feel wrecked about it. They might have stepped into preparation a little bit to where they're now contemplating it. They're thinking, maybe I made an appointment, but that's it. And so oftentimes, though, we treat everyone as if they're walking in an action stage. And so it just reminded me of what you're saying of like, we're in action stage in our mind sometimes, but we're really in crossing the line from moving from contemplating something to preparing. All what you were saying of like kind of getting your funding, making a foundation, learning before. I think sometimes with goals, it's almost like we believe we're already in action stage. I need to be doing and making it work. And you're kind of talking about preparation as a part of that. Does that fit? I mean, that's just
Yeah,
how that's
and I
pinging
think
in my mind.
and I think another thing that fits that I thought about while you were speaking is, so someone that's in addiction, right? And them making even the decision. Number one, the decision starts with knowing that you have a problem and being honest with yourself. Well, that's just like making a life change, to start a business or to change your job, we first have to decide that, like, hey, I don't want, my 2027 to look like 2026. What can I be doing differently in my career? Or, what can I do to start actually opening up that business that I've been talking about for the past 5 years, So I think with a lot of things, we have to get to a moment of realization or to a hard place, or to a moment of motivation, extreme motivation where it's like, hey, I'm going to finally do this,
Yeah.
or something major happens,
Well, we all get stuck in different parts, right? I mean, there's some of us, I know my mentality is kind of a dreamer. Like I'll think about things like I could do this. And then, so for me, I have to remind myself that I've only thought about it and I haven't done anything yet sometimes and break that down. And then for others, it's even just, thinking about something to believe that, because if we don't have a belief we can do something, we don't really think about what that something would be either, you know?
Mm-hmm.
How much does adaptation work? I mean, as far as, or what role does adapting play when people are like, as you put it, kind of like building a foundation, trying to decide, well, what do I want to do? I don't know yet, or things like that. Or maybe I think I know and it ain't working. And maybe I need to be able to, part of my need is to pivot and change my ideas and things. I don't know, trying to adapt as we go. I'm curious your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think, well, I think that that's a skill set, adaptation, because a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people and a lot of people are afraid of change, I think also too, like the older we get, we see it in, some of our elder, relatives and things of that nature. They've been living in the house for 50 years. They're not going anywhere, even though it kills them walking up those steps. And they've got the big 4 or 5 bedroom house that they were raising the kids in. They would do so much better if they downsize, But so yes, I think that adaptation is huge. It's huge just in business in general, right? We can't run businesses the same way. Like, look, we've got AI, that's taking over now. So if you got people that don't want to learn AI or people that don't want to adapt to change, I always relate this in business to a lot of like the cable companies back in the day, right? Viacom, Comcast, etc. All they did was focus on cable. But they had to adapt and change. And so a lot of them, they started doing wireless internet, they started doing alarm services. Imagine if they still focused on cable. How many people actually really still have cable nowadays? Most people have Netflix and Hulu and Peacock. And, we put together our own cable with whatever streaming services we want to have. But those businesses had to adapt and change to the times, and what was happening in society. And so that's the same thing that we have to do.
Do you find people have a hard time separating out adapting a goal and confusing that with feeling like they failed a goal? It's like the thing didn't work out the way I wanted, then I did it
Yeah.
wrong, or adaption. But where's that line of difference there?
I mean, sometimes we just got to let go of something that isn't working. And the thing is that I always tell people is that, we learn more from our failures than we do our successes. There's nothing wrong with failing. But everybody that you see that is uberly successful have failed at something. They had to fail a few times to get it right and be successful. That's generally the story behind their success is the failures. So I always tell people, we have to embrace the failures. It's very important to make sure that we are embracing those failures, because those failures are learning moments for us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a hard thing to accept a lot of times too. I feel like the sting of a failure of any kind, a failure of a goal, well, also just even defining it that way. I was like, when we use I just the phrase I just said, failure of a goal. I think that it's hard for us not to extrapolate that out to that failure. Our concept of it bleeds into personalization. I am a failure, instead of like, oh,
Mhm,
I didn't do this good thing I really wanted to do, or it failed, I'm a failure, kind of
mhm.
thing. And I think that comes from that fear. I mentioned this a lot. I think it's interesting that when we go to school, you think about the fact that education was designed in such a way that the grade system, that at least the old one that most of us are familiar with, they've gone to numbers, a lot of other schools and things now, which I think is a good thing, because growing up, it was always like we knew what the grades were. You got an A, B, C, D, or an F. And I think it's interesting that in an educational system, we skip a letter just so we can call ourselves failures. That's the only one that leads to a word, by the way. A doesn't stand for nothing, not really. B, but what is B? Kind of, but not quite A. It's nothing. F. We skipped a letter so that we can put a big red F on things. So I think that shows where our mentality's at sometimes with shame.
Mhm,
That's my own little weird. I don't know, not a conspiracy theory exactly, but I do think it's a we have a weirdly shame focused relationship with failure, right?
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure.
What kinds of things do you see that help people to overcome some of those things, or to there's all these principles, but applying them to themselves when they are doing this day to day and working on plans and goals and things, and they experience this, changing that mindset. How do you find people get actually do that?
Hey, this is a plug for you right here, Dwight. Listening to podcasts like this, hearing people's stories that have overcome failure, and it's led them to a path of success. Realizing that everyone has gone through it. You're not this big chunk of failure. We've all gone through it. You're gonna get past it. It's a part of it. It's a part of the process. It's a part of the learning, and it's gonna work out for you in the end. It's kind of like, the question that everybody always asks, me personally, I know when I do interviews is, what would you tell your younger self? Hey, it's going to be all right. Keep going, keep working hard through those failures. There's another side to this thing, so I think that's very important for people to understand, because honestly, those failures do not feel good until you get to the other side. Until you have a taste of success, you aren't able to say, yeah, failure is a part of the process. While you're going through it, it doesn't feel good, but The fact of the matter is, it is a part of the process, and we all fail. Most of the successful entrepreneurs I know did not start off doing what they're doing. They started off doing something else, and then it led them to it. So, like we were talking about, adapting and transitioning and learning when to let something go, and get into something else. All of those things are a part of the journey to success.
Mhm. If I can ask you a little bit about, and I know that this is a lot of what you share in your book, um, when you were going through at the same time so many like personal loss of your daughter, and you're going through that relationship change, and you're going through all of that, trying to like you're coping and you're doing the things that you had to do going through
Mhm.
that. Can you just maybe share a little bit about how you addressed and responded and dealt with like the adversity and when you were also feeling such deep personal loss and that sorrow
Yeah,
and grief?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it was really, really tough because this was also something that I was going through in the public eye. At the time, I had very, very successful, restaurants. My business partner is the Grammy Award winning rapper Two Chains. A lot of spotlight, on our restaurants. And I was, not only the business partner, but the main operator, of these restaurants. My daughter worked for the company in the restaurants as well. So, it was something where there were definitely a lot of eyes on me. And I will say, being in the hospitality industry, um, a lot of people in hospitality, they drink, and it's pretty common, you know what I mean? Hey, we had a great successful day. Let's all take a shot, the
Mhm.
staff, at the end of the day. Well, for me, I think I definitely, not I think, but I know I use drinking as a coping mechanism initially, just to be, truthful and honest, with you and the listeners. It was a way for me to hide the pain and cover the pain versus dealing with those true emotions, So for me, it did not start off as something that I would recommend, but it's something that I'm honest about because I know a lot of people have been in this situation before. And I think, once I actually turned to therapy and counseling, that was one of the things that I learned is in order to heal from something, you have to feel it, and you have to go through it. You're not going to get through it until you go through it.
Mhm.
And that, was the shift for me. And it was realizing that, like, hey, I don't want to stay stuck in this place because I can really lose myself, in going through this, And so I want to get through this. I want to be able to inspire other people. And one thing that I had to say to myself is, Dwight, is I'm not the first mother that's lost a child, and I won't be the last. And I started looking and reading stories about other mothers that had been through the same thing and that were on the other side of it and doing a little bit better and in a much better place. And just to be honest with you, it's something that you never get over. You never get over the loss of someone that you brought into this world. And so, one, I had to be honest with myself about that. Two, I found a group of women that, and not only women, but men as well, parents in general, that, I could relate to. And so there are tons of organizations out there, and that's what they're there for. And we have to lean on them during those times, when we do need them. Only you know what you need. Healing is definitely a self job. First of all, you have to want to heal. You got to get out of the space of, woe is me, and for me, it was going back to a place of faith. Initially, I was in that place of wanting to lean on God, and I also had some moments of questioning God, and why my daughter? Why me? Why my family? And all of those things are just very realistic thoughts, that a lot of people, have and going through that. And so a lot of my reading changed from business books to grief books. A lot of the podcasts I was listening to. And so I found myself just kind of feeding my healing during that time period. And it's definitely an ongoing process. It's been 3 years, and to some people, 3 years is a lot of time. To me, it's not. It seems like a lot of time that I haven't seen my daughter or heard her voice. But it seems like just yesterday, that me and my family went through that tragedy. So healing is an ongoing process. And I find new things all the time that help me heal, whether it's, starting a garden, working out, journaling, going to grief share. There's tons of things out there, but it starts inside, and it starts with that mental place of wanting to heal and wanting to heal in a positive, productive way.
Yeah. It's interesting how so much of your own output, your own career, the things that you do, uh, as we were talking earlier about how it naturally links up to supporting other people. I mean, even the industries that you've been in, I mean, hospitality by its very nature, right? It's supportive. It's a supportive industry of other people. Even if even if we think of it as just have a nice dinner out, it's like, but that's a very important thing for people in their day-to-day lives. It's supportive. You're supportive. You mentor people. You reach out. That's a natural instinct for you. That seemed like in your moments of need, then being able to reach out in a different way, like you talk about finding community, not just building it in that case, but also finding existing community and reaching out to other people. It sounds like is an important part of that for you as well, is that you reach out to people and support them, but then to be able to reach out to a community and find support for yourself too. It sounds like that was is one of the big parts of your healing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and even something in social media, I have spoken. I don't do it as much now, but when during the moments, I mean, where I was just extremely broken, I was outwardly outspoken about, my feelings and my journey on social media, and you'd be surprised the amount of people that it touched that had went through similar situations, and just were inspired about something as simple as wanting to live and wanting to go on and wanting to still do business and wanting to still help others. And even the foundation that I started in my daughter's name for her legacy and to help others. So yeah.
Wow. Well, and the chance to then also then give back to other people. It's an interesting, uh, boy, I was about to use the word synergy. Do people still use that? I was going to say the synergy of like giving and receiving. So there we go. Everybody out there can judge me in the comments or come at me online for using the word synergy. Anyway, I'm an old man. Give me a break. but that kind of relationship that you're having between what you're putting out and then also participating in it as well, I could just see why that makes it more the mentoring that you do offer more meaningful, because you're also willing to receive and to engage when you're in need as well. I think that's a cool skill set. That's a cool ability that I think is very hard for many of us to have.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Well, as we're kind of this is one of those conversations that could be like 3 times as long. We could go 3 hours. So let's do that. No, I'm just kidding. But people should spend definitely more time than just this with you through your books and your work and the things. I want to tell people how they can follow you, but as you know, I like to ask every guest to talk about some way of giving back to the community. And we've talked about so much already in just the way we try to think about things. But would you have anything like a charity or nonprofit you could share with listeners? You mentioned a foundation for your daughter. I think we probably should highlight that, but let's mention that. And then is there anything, what would you like people to know about?
Yeah, that's the foundation that I would like people to know about.
Yeah.
And so it's the Katara Renee Dillard Foundation, KATARA, Renee, RENEE Dillard, Dillard. And so the website is KatiraReneeDillardFoundation.org. I also have another foundation called Her Impact Foundation. And so similar website, just under the title. But yeah, I can be found on Instagram at Who is Snoop. My website is whoissnoop.com. And it has links to everything that I have going on. I always respond to all of my DMs as long as it's nothing crazy.
Yeah, that's not an invitation out there, weirdos. No, I'm just
right.
kidding.
Okay. Of course, the reality show is absolutely amazing. We've got the reunion coming out soon, and so that can be viewed again on Tubi, Amazon Prime, and Apple TV. And my book, Who is Snoop, Grieve, Grow, and Go, can be purchased on Amazon out of the Amazon store.
Oh, I didn't. I wanted to hit that also real quick. I just wanted to ask, what could you tell people a little bit about the experience of producing a reality show? What was that like? I mean, I know that's a big question, but what was that? That must have been crazy to get into.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was fun. We actually we filmed that entire series, so it's a 10-part series, and we filmed it in 12 days. So it was a really busy time period, but it was fun. Enjoyed it so much. Found out that I was a natural in front of the camera. Not sure I'll be doing it again though. But
I haven't watched it yet. Do you do the host piece?
Well, I'm starring in it, so I'm on there. I'm looking for love. There's a.
See, I just got the blurb and had it on there, so I hadn't seen it yet. But it's you getting the dates, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going out on dates and trying to find,
just kind of double duty, producing, hosting, and being the subject of the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It was fun. It was a great experience.
That's wild. That's awesome. And did you hook up with a production like an established kind of thing, or did you do your own?
Man Robinson Productions, actually a friend of mine that I had met, probably about 18 years ago. I met him, and we would just be sitting around talking about our goals and dreams. And I went down the hospitality road. He went down the TV film industry, and we later hooked back up and ended up working together. Nice. So it just goes to show how life is.
Well, I'm going to have to check it out and see what happened, because before I ask, no spoilers, of course, for everybody out there. You got to watch it, see what happens. And especially before you hit those DMs, check and see what happened on the show, right? I'm not just kidding. But anyway, you're doing such great work. I really appreciate you taking the time to share it with us today. I wanted to, let me take one quick little shout out to all of you, the listeners out there. As we're entering the month of August, the end of August is International Opioid Overdose Awareness Month, and we have a little a yearly tradition here on the show is that we do a live stream about that, and so that's going to be on Monday, August 31st, and you can find details about that are going up. If I can get the flyer done, then they should be up by now, by the time this episode comes out. If you go to dwighthurst.com/live or live, however you want to say it. I don't want to tell you all how to live out there or how to live, but go to dwighthurst.com/live to find more details about that. It's we're going to have a focus this year on health management and the importance that plays in both defining and living according to whatever sobriety means for the person, and how that can help with this, the big problem that stems from overdose and overdose related consequences. And there will be a link. Not only there'll be links on the website to watch the event while it's going on our YouTubes and Facebook and different places where we can get it up. Also, there's a link. There'll be a direct link, as always, for anybody to join, kind of call-in style. Click that link, and you click the link that says join. You will be on the feed. You will jump on, and anybody's welcome to come on and talk about anything they would like to, and to support that movement. And so, Snoop, you're also definitely invited. Anybody can join for as much as anywhere from 30 seconds up until like 5 hours, which is how long it is. So everybody can be aware of that. And once again, Snoop, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Dwight. I truly appreciate it.